This week, we talk about Ubuntu and Fedora both releasing, and then Git, believe it or not, turns 20 years old. Cosmic is absolutely everywhere these days. Framework really impresses us with an AMD laptop, and Thunderbird is rolling out Thundermail. It's a lot of fun. You don't want to miss it, so stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is the Untitled Linux Show, episode 199, recorded Saturday, April 19th. The older you get, the less time you have. Hey folks, it is Saturday, and you know what that means. It's time to get geeky with Linux and open source, hardware and software, all kinds of stuff today. It is, of course, not just me. We've got the regular crew. Rob and Ken and Jeff are here, and we are going to start by talking about Ubuntu, which is not my favorite distribution, but it is some people's favorite distributions. And Rob is going to bring the story of, well, 2504.
You either hate it or you love it. So yes, this is a moment we've all been waiting for. Except for Jeff. He couldn't wait because he's been running the beta, I think, for a little while. But for the rest of us, the moment we've been waiting for is here. And that's the Plucky Puffin is now available for download. And if you don't know what a Plucky Puffin is, well, I don't know what the animal is either, but as far as Canonical is concerned, it is Ubuntu 2504 release. So Ubuntu 25.04 is powered with the latest Linux 6.14 kernel. There is now a generic ARM64 desktop ISO targeting virtual machines, ACPI plus EFI platforms, and Snapdragon-based Windows on ARM devices, as well as initial hardware enablement for the Snapdragon X Elite platform. The installer has features to improve dual booting for Windows, so that way Jeff can more easily dual boot Windows and Linux. It's now including a focus on BitLocker protected Windows systems, allowing users to install Ubuntu alongside existing BitLocker partitions. It has network enhancements such as NetPlan receives support for WPA, PSK, SHA-256 Wi-Fi connections, so some better encryption there. There is support for configuring routing policies on the Network Manager backend, and there's support for new functionality in Systemd Network D. Wait online to wait for DNS servers to be configured and reachable before considering an interface to be online. So before the interface says it's online, it has to be able to get to DNS. We also see improvements with AppArmor, and NVIDIA Dynamic Boost is now enabled by default on supported laptops with NVIDIA GPUs. So Jeff will definitely like that one too. All the core apps under the hood are updated, such as the new GCC 15, which I believe GCC 15.1 just came out, but they have 15 on there. And the exciting new apt 3.0 package manager that I think we just talked about last week, maybe it was the week before, but that's one you definitely want to get your hands on. And then Ubuntu 2504 also includes the new GNOME or GNOME, whatever you want to call it. I like GNOME 48 and all the great features that that includes, like notification grouping. And then there's also a new digital well-being panel in settings, providing screen time tracking features and controls similar to what Apple provides. So you can get scolded when you're in front of the screen too much. And a feature Jonathan would love is HDR support, kind of, for the apps that support it at least. And it's not enabled by default. You have to go on there and you have to get that enabled, but it's there. And there are a lot of other new features in here, like preserve battery health mode to help prolong battery capacity. And No, okay. I think I'm just going to stop right here. No one wants me to list off feature after feature for, the rest of the show. We all want to get out of here and well, for me, I want to play some games, but who knows what the rest.
Try out Ubuntu 2504.
Today I mostly use Ubuntu on servers, and I didn't really see anything too interesting in there for 2504 for me, for my servers. So I think I'm still going to wait for the next LTS like I normally do. But it looks pretty great for the desktop. So maybe when I'm done running Mint, I'll give Ubuntu another try on the desktop someday.
One thing is if you're running 24.10 Kubuntu with KDE going to 2504, you are now on the 6.3 KDE version. So you're a lot of updated Plasma and frameworks and all that.
Welcome to the future.
Yep.
I think I'll wait till next month. 2 reasons. 1, to give myself time to back up my current desktop, just in case. And number 2, to give it time for some of those updates that you'll probably end up having to do for the next couple of weeks to go ahead and get rolled into what I actually install.
Shouldn't your nightly backups cover that first one pretty easily? I mean, that should just be done when you wake up in the morning.
So I've got to know, does Ubuntu intentionally pick animals that nobody's ever heard of?
I think they just kind of ran out of things to do with their lettering scheme.
I know they intentionally pick animals.
A lot of them are based out of Africa, I believe.
Yeah, which is where the Ubuntu name comes from as well.
Yeah,
so it's kind of on brand. I did know essentially what a puffin was. I could have told you it was a type of bird. It's a cute little, almost penguin-ish thing. So I mean, I approve. It's a cute little bird.
It's a better or more recognizable name for me than some of the more recent ones, which I can't remember what those were either. But I knew there were some that I just had never heard of.
2510 is going to be called Questing Quokka.
What's Quokka?
It's a cute little critter, fuzzy critter that looks like it's making the whelp face. That's what I see every time I see it.
Whelp.
Where's the sound? It's a sound Pac-Man makes when he's eating dots. Quacka, quacka, quacka,
quacka. Oh, for those of us on the other side of the fence, Fedora 42 is now out this past week. And we told you about that last week on the show. I've not updated to it yet, but as soon as life settles down and I don't have anything else that's absolutely pressing, so in a couple of years here, I'll eventually get to it.
You got any hardware that you're going to put it on?
The desktop behind me, it'll go to Fedora 42.
Weren't you getting a relative a laptop or building a laptop for him?
So I did. I purchased a framework for my parents a while back, and they have enjoyed that. And I have been considering a framework for quite a while. Ken, there's something new with the Framework 13, isn't there?
Yes, there is. And I want to thank, first of all, Michael Larabelle for doing a review of the Framework 13 with AMD Ryzen AI 300, or is it A1 300? Strix Point SoCs. Now, quoting Michael, wow, what an upgrade. I've spent the past week testing out the Framework 13 with the AMD Ryzen AI 9 HX 370, and it's been terrific. Framework 13's modularity continues to pay off and allows easily upgrading to the new Strix Point bearing motherboard with AMD Zen 5 CPU cores and the Radeon 890M, it's an RDNA 3.5, integrated graphics. If you are on a fresh Linux distribution, the support is in great shape and paired with great performance for delivering a great 2025 Linux laptop option. Now, Framework announced back in February about bringing the AMD Ryzen AI 300 series to the Framework 13 this month. The new laptops, or just upgrading the motherboard for an existing Framework Computer 13, are available for pre-order via frame.work. There are options for the Ryzen AI 5 340, Ryzen AI 7 350, and Ryzen AI 9 HX 370. Now, don't be surprised if you find that your order won't ship until June, since the first batch or two have already sold out. Michael had already been testing the Ryzen AI 9 HX 370 since last summer and found that the Framework 13 delivers even better performance than what he saw out of the Asus ZenBook S16 that it was using for the StrixPoint Linux benchmarking. According to Michael, you'll want to be running as new a Linux distribution as possible to get the most out of StrixPoint. He found that Fedora 41, with all available package updates, provides a nice experience, though you may find it even better with Fedora 42. He found assembling the Ryzen AI 300 series laptop was quick and easy. Michael said, after putting together the new Framework 13 components, it was off to the races with Linux. Ubuntu 25.04 with the Framework 13 paired with the AMD Ryzen AI 9 HX 370 has been working out great for compatibility and performance. In my week so far of testing out the new mainboard, there haven't been any issues to report on or around Ubuntu 25.04 usage with its Linux 6.14 kernel and Mesa 25.0 graphics drivers. Now, instead of my putting you to sleep reading a lot of graphs to you, I'll let you follow the link in our show notes and read them yourselves. Jeff, could this be your new laptop?
Very possible. I'm kind of at a dead heat between Framework and System 76. That's kind of my top two contenders.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the advantage to Framework is every couple of years you could just replace that mainboard.
If you're very nice to the rest of the computer.
Yeah, I am pretty good about being nice to the machines.
Yeah, I too have been looking at the frameworks, the Framework 13. I'm also pretty interested in the Framework 12, looking at what all they put in that. I would actually find it really fascinating if they put an LTE modem in the Framework 12. I don't know if they're going to or not, but that would be very interesting to me.
Can't you put whatever you want in it?
I mean,
they have to make the module, but
there is somebody that is working on. I was looking at that. There is somebody that's working on making an LTE module that will fit into the Framework slots. It was still a work in progress last time I checked. So it wasn't quite ready to go. But yeah, that is a thing that there's a community member working on, and you could do it yourself, honestly. But yeah, between the Framework 12 and the Framework 13, I want to know what's up with this goofy name of this processor, the Ryzen AI 9 HX 370. Somebody needs to go beat someone at AMD's marketing about the Head and Shoulders for calling something, well, for putting the name AI in it at all.
Well, and there's some like HX Extreme, AI HX Extreme or something. I mean, there's like about 4 of them that are about the same name. They just keep tacking things on. And it's like, it's just like somebody got fired from the USB consortium and they got a naming convention over at, AMD.
Yes.
Hey, if it's 35 syllables, it'll be easy to remember.
Yeah, no, that's no.
They just put AI in there to show that AI came up with the name.
Maybe
it's like a signature.
I guess it makes as much sense as AI does.
Well, or is that an A1?
No, it's an AI.
It's AI.
It was worth a try.
They want to show it off.
Yeah. All right. Well, if we don't want to use AMD, but we want to use the other team, particularly when it comes to video cards, what's new, Jeff?
Well, in case you haven't been keeping up with the latest hardware news, NVIDIA has released its RTX 56 Ti graphics card featuring 16 gigabytes of GDDR7 memory but it also comes in another variant with 8 gigabytes of DDR7 memory. Michael Larrable over at Phoronix has been testing the 16 gigabyte version, and today we'll be diving into both compute benchmarks and gaming benchmarks. But first, a quick note. Reviewers across the internet have been urging consumers to avoid the 8 gigabyte cards, as a lot of people believe that the 8 gigabytes of VRAM will have a much shorter lifespan compared to the 16 gigabyte option. While the cards are primarily marketed for 1080p gaming, newer titles continue to demand more VRAM. So even if you use frame generation, sometimes called fake frame generation, that process also consumes VRAM. So you're not.
So they're not saying that the cards are going to burn themselves out. They're saying they're just not going to compete in the market for long.
Once you hit 8 gigabytes of VRAM and you're using it, your frame rates just drop. So you're playing it. Well, you're playing at 60 frames a second. You run out of VRAM, you're probably at 25 frames a second.
Yeah,
or maybe even slower, because now you're swapping out of normal system memory, and it's not only is it not as fast as the GDDR7, now you're going through you're transferring it. It's got to go either through the CPU, or if you have direct memory where it can dump it into RAM, it's DDR5 is still slower than the GDDR, plus the interface, the overhead transport. It's just bad news. And that's why also I want to make note that using the frame generation, it also uses VRAM. So you think, well, I'm going to have a lower overhead because now my resolution is smaller and it's got upscaling, but it takes RAM to make that happen. So, but enough of that. Let's get rolling with the benchmarks. And we'll begin with the compute performance that was the first batch of testing. Now, these tests were conducted using the NVIDIA 570 133.07 driver. Now, the gaming benchmarks, however, were held back until the arrival of a new driver, the beta 575.51.02. So now this new driver brings several enhancements, including the extension of the NV_disable_explicit_sync behavior to GLX and Vulkan applications, along with various bug fixes that addresses crashes in several different games. And it also introduces NVIDIA's Smooth Motion, which is an AI-based feature designed for the GeForce 50 series cards to improve gameplay fluidity by inferring additional frame data between two rendered frames. So it's kind of a frame smoothing in between rendered frames, part of the additional frames that sometimes they can put in. For those interested, the driver release page is linked in the articles included in the show notes, so you can see everything that was done in there. But going back, let's take a closer look at the compute performance. So Michael Larrable tested both 50 series and 40 series NVIDIA GPUs. And although AMD cards and older NVIDIA GPUs were not included though AMD cards and older NVIDIA GPUs were not included in these benchmarks. But we do know historically AMD's not doing so hot on compute right now. They're still working on their ROCm to get it fully loaded and running for the new generation of cards. So where does the RTX 5060 Ti stand? Essentially right between the RTX 4070 and the RTX 4060. Michael did note a couple of limitations in his tests, including the absence of a 4060 Ti, which he doesn't have, and the fact that his RTX 4060 lacks a power consumption sensor. So there's going to be some gaps in the power data because he just couldn't measure for the 4060. But overall, the results align with expectations, nothing too surprising. Now, shifting to gaming benchmarks, we have a similar comparison of GPUs, but with the addition of AMD 7000 and 9000 series cards. Now, looking at the overall results, the RTX 5060 Ti sits between the Radeon RTX 7800 XT and the RX 7700 XT, which in turn are bracketed by the RTX 4060 and the RTX 4070. However, it is important to note that Vulkan-based ray tracing performance was significantly stronger on the NVIDIA cards compared to AMD's 7000 series offerings. The 9000s do have better, they do have better ray tracing. It's taken quite a big step from the 7000 to 9000. Now comes the big question: should you buy one? As of now, the biggest challenge is the price. These cards are fluctuating anywhere between $420 and nearly $600. And thanks to scalpers, supply constraints, other market factors, if you can, I'd recommend waiting a couple more months to see how the situation evolves. Even concerns about tariffs are uncertain as they change frequently, with new exceptions and additions constantly being introduced, plus the overall numbers going up and down. The future price of these cards is hard to predict. They could go up, they could go down. Ultimately, I'll leave it to all of you to check out the articles linked in the show notes and to decide for yourself. Personally, given some of the ongoing NVIDIA issues, there's still power connector issues, there's other chip issues, driver issues. If I was purchasing a graphics card today because I really needed one, I would honestly opt for an AMD 9700 XT or even a 9700, because if you desire and want to feel like tinkering with it, people have been driving with firmware updates and other tweaks. They can get 9700s up to 9700 XT levels. But you need to be able to have confidence you can go in and play under the hood. That said, even those cards have, unpredictable pricing. AMD's not immune from that either. So I do wish everyone the best on their GPU journeys, whatever path you're going to take.
You're not looking for a new GPU today, Jeff? You got some good frame rates with your GPU?
I do have good frame rates. So
you probably need a new camera, though, because your webcam was like 1 frame per 10 minutes there.
1 frame per story.
I need to get OBS fixed is my problem. OBS keeps locking up on me.
Fine.
Maybe step back a version?
I already did. I uninstalled 31 and now I went back to the 30 point something, but it totally crashed on me.
Something's not happy.
Yeah, but it runs fine on Restream, so that if anybody sees my background quivering a little bit or quaking, that's just Restream.
It's nervous.
Playing with my green screen. Yeah.
Yes.
Or making more realistic fire background.
Yay.
Flickering flames.
Yeah. So there was something interesting that I saw in the benchmarks that you linked to there in your second story. And that was that the RX 9070 XT, the new top-level AMD card, does not do great in comparison in some of these. And there's actually some news about that I've got. It's also a Phoronix article. When you're talking about Linux gaming and frame rates, that is kind of the place to go to. The RDNA 4, that's what the 9000 series cards from AMD is based on. That is their chip is AMD 4, or excuse me, RDNA 4. It is very new. And therefore, there are things that are not as performant as they could be. And so we've got here a story about the stuff in Mesa 25.1, which that is the version of Mesa that's just about to release, where the various developers have been adding stuff to it. And so we've got a part of the driver is going to enable compression. We've got some other things here. You've got Merrick. If you've been following Linux graphics card stuff for a while, Merrick is a name that will it will be familiar. His work will be familiar to you. And he is working on tweaks and performance and fixes to be able to get various games to work a bit better. And those should land in 25.1. So, if you have or get one of these cards, you're going to want to look for a distro that's going to ship with or at least update you to Mesa 25.1. But then there's also work on ray tracing for RDNA 4, which, again, if you look at the benchmarks, that was a little bit down compared to some of the others. It was a little lower than you might expect. And there is work that's being done there as well. And there is actually a new format. It is BVH8. It is a new format that is supported in these cards in RDNA 4, but was not wired up yet in Mesa. And so they're just now getting merged the ability to turn that new format on, which will give you better ray tracing performance. But that is going to take a while, and that stuff is probably going to work. They're going to land in 25.2. So the second release of Mesa from the year, probably in August is when that will come out as stable. So Fedora 43, Ubuntu 25.10 is really where these cards are going to come into their own and really be performant. And, that might be about the time that they really start showing up available all the time at or close to MSRP. I got to looking for one of these the other day and sort of gave up in just a few minutes going, yeah, they're not really available yet. Not for any of the prices that I would be interested in paying. But anyway, work is coming, and it looks like the 9070 in a few months here is really going to be a compelling choice for Linux gaming too.
What distribution would you recommend running to make sure you've got the Mesa version that you'd need to support those?
Fedora
and Arch.
Fedora.
Yeah, or depending on the release cycle, one of the Ubuntu's could have it as well.
Yeah. Ubuntu is better now than it used to be. It used to lag much worse than it does now. But Fedora. So I would say you're going to get decent support out of it with either Fedora 42 or Ubuntu 25.04, and then the next version of both of those is going to be even better.
Or Arch,
or Tumbleweed, or
Tumbleweed.
But forget LXQT.
Probably.
Yeah, that's not what I'd call cutting edge, but
they had a release though, didn't they?
They did, and they are moving forward in certain ways. I always say I'm often on here talking about how everyone needs to be with Wayland. Wayland is the way, and even LXQt or LXQT, or whichever you want to pronounce it, LXQt is how I'm going to say it, is on board. So, LXQt, known for being a lightweight desktop environment, and maybe a little slower to update like others like XFCE. But they have released version 2.2 this week with even better Wayland support. LXQt 2.2 brings better multi-screen support on Wayland, among other features. Working to make the Wayland environment better supported. Don't worry, Ken. X11 is still on there for people like you. The LXQt Wayland session will also continue working gracefully with all the latest stable versions of the different Wayland compositors it can be paired with. Because with LXQt, you could use and Wayland, you could use a number of compositors. The LXQt panel can now be configured per monitor when using the Wayland session. The drop-down Q terminal window has been improved under Wayland. Monitor settings for KWin Wayland will now work if one or both screens are scaled. LXQt 2.2 also brings support within PCMan FM-QT for custom options for terminals. Fixes Q terminal around text rendering, and support for PPD power profiles within LXQt power management. Unfortunately, Ubuntu users, or I should say Lubuntu or Lubuntu users, you're going to have to wait a little bit, about another 6 months before you can do that, because you won't see this version until Lubuntu 20.10, now that 20.04 is out. And I'm not really sure what distros will be shipping this first. I'm not aware of a lot of LXQt distros, but if you really want to get your hands on it, you can always compile it from source.
I don't think you mean 20.04 and 20.10.
Is that what I said? No.
Yes.
Let's change those 20s do a set. I'm at 2504 and 25.10.
All I can picture is Robin Williams with the beard and the long hair. What year is it?
I even have it written down 25.10. It's not like my notes have it written wrong. It just, I don't know what year it is.
It just happens. Yep. Have you ever run LXQt on your primary?
Never as my primary, I don't think.
Yeah.
I have tried it out though.
I'm trying to think. I know for a while distros like Backtrack used to ship with I think that one was XFCE, but you get some of these niche distros every once in a while ship with these by default. I'm trying to remember if there is anything that ships, besides Ubuntu that ships with LXQt by default. I don't know if there is.
Yeah, I really couldn't find anything when I was looking into it. I wanted to see who would be the premier LXQt distro, and I really couldn't find anything. A lot of them have that as an option, but it's not their flagship ever.
I wonder if someplace like LXQt, do they even have numbers? Do they have an idea of how many people run their desktop? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I don't know. I tried it.
I'm sure it's perfectly serviceable.
Lightweight.
It's just not quite what I'm looking for.
It's KDE-ish in a way. It's got that cute Qt stuff in the background, and
Sure.
it's like a lightweight KDE without all the configurable features.
But the whole thing of it was supposed to be lightweight, and back when I know KDE was version 3 and version 4, it was a lot smaller. But once they hit version 5, I've seen tests where it's not really much difference. KDE now is pretty lightweight versus what it used to be, and compared to other desktops, it's
and they're both using Qt, so you can't expect one to have better lightweightness for that. So
yeah, it really anymore I think is more if you like have the preference, go for it, but you're not gaining resources back really, or nothing noteworthy.
Yeah.
Back in my day when I want a lightweight desktop I just ran X, and you had like these crosshatch pattern all the way across the screen.
You just stole my line.
You just ran whatever.
Back in the old open VMS days, running
These kids and their desktop environments. Get out of here with that.
All you need is that and somewhere to run a command, and you can run anything just directly on X.
Back in my day, if you can lift a computer, it's not a real computer.
All right, Ken, let's talk about Open Silicon.
Well, be more than happy to. But first, I want to thank Marco. And I do apologize if Google misled me on how to pronounce the last name. I'm going to say Fioretti for sharing his opinion via Phosphorus. Marco starts his article by declaring, people can say as much as they want about software eating the world, but software wouldn't exist without hardware that runs it. Because what really makes the modern world possible is microelectronics, not source code. He then states in 2021, COVID-19 and the U.S.-China trade wars caused a severe chip shortage in European car plants. Europe responded with calls to break free from extra-European microelectronics trade wars and official searches for EU chip champions. Europe has even blocked chip factory acquisitions by Chinese companies over national security concerns. 14 European member states prepared a project called, you're going to love this one, IPCEI space ME/CT. Sounds like some obscure command line, doesn't it? But it actually stands for an important project of common European interest to support research, innovation, and the first industrial deployment of microelectronics and communication technologies across the value chain. This resulted in the European Commission and Parliament issuing the European Chips Act to foster the resilience of the EU's semiconductor ecosystem and help achieve both the digital and green transition across Europe. Marco feels that any further action should be based on 3 pillars: unity, smallness, and openness from top to bottom. Now, it's this third factor that caught my attention since it refers to open hardware, something we in the Linux community are always interested in. Now, open hardware can help reduce e-waste and prevent intellectual property lock-in. Now, since I don't want to deny you the experience of diving down this rabbit hole like I did, I do recommend starting with Marco's article that I have linked in our show notes.
Yeah, this is interesting stuff. So it is just a truism that it is not a great thing that the vast majority of the world's chips are made on a tiny little country that is as close as it is to China, right? I think everybody pretty much agrees on that. What we've not been able to agree on is the proper course of action of how to fix that. And we, of course, will not be able to come to any meaningful solutions on the show here today. We could give our opinions on it, but obviously this is something that the whole world, as it were, is going to have to come together and figure out, as they are trying to do currently, and we are sort of caught in the middle of that attempt.
And here's the scary part: it's our representatives that we have elected that are making this decision for us.
Save that for Halloween, Ken. Save that for Halloween.
It is sort of scary to listen to elected officials try to talk about technology. That's just that's not a Republican or Democrat, not a conservative or liberal statement. That's just across the board. It is sort of scary to hear elected officials talk about technology. Very, very few times do they have a clue what they're talking about, unfortunately.
If I forget in the after show, remind me, and I can give some thoughts on this. I can pontificate a bit.
Yeah.
And Quippy, you're right. That was the worst acronym ever that they came up with.
Yes. Yeah, this is interesting, and it's definitely something that we're watching, keeping an eye on. But like I said, we're not going to be able to. In fact, we're not even going to try to pontificate about this much more, because then we get into like the partisan politics side of it, and I don't find that interesting. I just don't. I don't find it very interesting on the show. So,
yeah, Jeff, so be quiet.
Well, we can talk about it after the show. It's a little bit more interesting there.
Well, but this is, and mine won't get into. I don't have to get into politics. It's all the industry in itself.
Sure.
And y'all can be prepared for a 3-hour after show.
I think I'll be in trouble if I stick around for that long. Goodness. Let's talk then about version control systems, aka Git.
And, I like SVN.
Out! Get out of here! I was at the OpenWRT summit back in like 2000, what would it have been, 14, 2015, something like that. And they're like, so is there anything else anybody else wants to talk about? Can we go from SVN to Git? And everybody else is like, oh my goodness, yes. And the devs there were like, oh, I guess we could talk about doing that. It wasn't long afterwards that they switched to Git. We're like, oh, thank you. Everybody hated SVN. Anyway, Jeff, tell us about Git.
One thing I'm surprised we haven't talked about yet, Git turned 20 years old on April 7th. Now, if you're involved in software development, chances are you've heard of it. And Git, if you haven't, it's a code repository system used to track revisions, manage projects, and much more. I mean, it's way more than that, but that's a high level what it does. At its core, though, it's all about making code development efficient and reliable. Now, Linus Torvalds is best known as the mastermind behind the Linux kernel, and we talk about him all the time on this show, but what's less commonly known is that he also created Git. Now, Git's origins go back to a problem that cropped up during the Linux kernel development. And at the time, the team was using a proprietary version control system called BitKeeper. Things were working smoothly until they weren't. BitKeeper accused a developer of reverse engineering techniques to create an open source tool called Source Puller, which was designed to communicate with BitKeeper. In response, BitKeeper revoked the free license that Linux development team had been using. Faced with this sudden loss, Linus needed a new solution. He surveyed the existing open source systems, but found none of them met his needs. So he pointed out that, traditional source control systems could take 30 seconds to apply a patch and update metadata, a pace which would never scale for the Linux kernel development. So when dealing with 250 patches at once, his solution needed to be lightning fast. So he set an ambitious goal of patching that should take no more than 3 seconds. Now, beyond speed, Linus had 3 other critical requirements. 1, don't mimic CVS. If in doubt, make the opposite design choices. Support a distributed workflow like BitKeeper, and include robust safeguards against corruption, whether accidental or malicious. So Linus got to work on April 3rd, 2005. 3 days later, he announced the Git project, and by April 7th, Git was self-hosting. And just 11 days later, the first merge of multiple branches took place, and by the end of April, it had already met its performance goals. The team benchmarked Git, adding patches to the Linux kernel tree at a blistering speed of 6.7 patches per second. By June 16th, 2005, Git was managing the Linux 2.6.12 kernel release. So, reflecting back on Git's 20th anniversary, Linus had this to say: Git was never a big thing for me. It was, I need to get this done to do the kernel. Mm-hmm. So, and some are probably asking, so what does Git even mean? The README file in the source code offers some amusing possibilities. 1, random 3-letter combination that is pronounceable and not actually used by any common Unix command. The fact that it's a mispronunciation of Git may or may not be relevant. 2, stupid, contemptible, and despicable. Simple. Take your pick from the dictionary of slang. 3, global information tracker. You're in a good mood and it actually works for you. Angels sing and a light suddenly fills the room. 4, goddamn idiotic truckload of stuff when it breaks. And if you actually look at the Git source history, the first comment is the information manager from hell. So, love it or hate it, Git is a cornerstone of modern software development, and it celebrates 2 decades of existence, and it remains one of the most influential tools in the tech world. Take a look at the article in the show notes for even more information, and they have a link to the actual blog post where they interview Linus, which is very long, but pretty interesting, and a lot of humor, because anytime Linus is talking, it's always good.
Yes. Oh yes.
For me, Git is just short for get her done.
There you go.
You mod the source code, add it in.
Yep. So I one thing that comes to mind, this idea that Linus did this in all of 10 days worth of work. I think of the idea of a 10x developer. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. It's the rock star, the guy that can get 10 times as much done. And I kind of have this feeling that it's not so much that a developer is a 10x developer, but that a developer comes to a point to where they are the ones that are suited to solve a problem. And so for that particular problem, they are the 10x developer. And I don't know, maybe most of us that are developers will be that guy at one point in our career. But anyway, Torvalds was that guy for those 10 days to come up with the first working version of Git in just over a week. Because it got a lot right.
Well, apparently he needed it so he could help manage all the changes that were being made in Linux at the time.
Yep, that's true.
Exactly what it was.
And that's sort of the way the best projects come about. It's a felt need, and you know how to fix it, and you just go out and you do it. And that's how the best source code projects really come about.
And I just always love the CVS line. Whatever they do, don't do that.
Do the opposite.
Do the opposite.
Yes. All right, Rob. What is this that's spreading?
Yeah. So
is this is a new virus? Are we, are we going to lock down again? Is it a new license that's going to become viral and make people at Microsoft upset again? What is this?
So you've all heard of the Big Bang. Well, how about the cosmic spread? Because the cosmic desktop is continuing to spread everywhere. It isn't even out of alpha yet, but the cosmic desktop that was originally designed for System 76's Pop! OS is popping up everywhere. We've talked about it coming to Fedora. We mentioned, I think, coming to the Arch-based Garuda Linux. I'm pretty sure I've seen that it's available on Void Linux also, and I don't even know where else, but it's going to show up places. It's coming everywhere. But one place I didn't predict, at least not this soon. I wasn't expecting it to show up anytime soon on cell phones or mobile devices. Well, it's coming now to a cell phone near you, if you wanted to, and you got the right cell phone. But it's coming to Post-Market OS 2025-03. So for those who don't know, Post-Market OS is an operating system primarily for smartphones based on the Alpine Linux distribution. It extends the free and open source operating system Alpine Linux to run on smartphones and other mobile devices. And that also means that Cosmic is available in Alpine Linux now too. The latest release of Post-Market OS also brings the great GNOME 48. Has some Firefox config changes like per site user agent spoofing, making for example, YouTube use its proper mobile site. There's initial camera support has been merged now for the OnePlus 6 if you got one of those and you want to put Post-Market on there. And really just a ton of other improvements and device specific improvements so you can actually run a real Linux on your phone. So now Cosmic is going to be one of those.
Cool. We talk about one of the advantages of Cosmic is that they've made everything very configurable. It's sort of a toolkit that you can build a desktop with. So it does sort of make sense that it might work on a phone fairly well.
Yeah, and it's lightweight, which is also another good thing to have on a smartphone, even though a lot of the smartphones these days are more powerful than a lot of people's computers, but some of them aren't.
Yeah.
Hey, don't pick on Ken.
No, Ken finally upgraded. He's got a decent computer these days.
That is true.
That's true. Ken has
but
a nice
especially
computer.
I think a lot of devices people are going to be putting this on are older devices. So having something fast and lightweight. Speaking of lightweight desktop environments earlier, like LXQt, XFCE, I don't know what if there's been any benchmarks, but Cosmic sure felt like a sure winner to me in a lot of those categories just from testing it out. It felt pretty fast, but somebody needs to benchmark that if they haven't.
I thought I'm just trying to dig back in memory. I thought Michael Larrable did, but I thought there was some issues getting it to run because it was certain benchmarks it would crash. I mean, was that on a VM too? Because I know
the first version of Cosmic had problems running on a virtual machine. Yeah,
the first alpha release
could have been because it was. I want to say it was a few months ago, even so. It was an even earlier alpha than it is now. So.
Well, Rob, if you want to pick up a new hobby, you could go start doing some benchmarking. That's an idea.
Yeah,
I love to do a lot of things. I don't know. Ken, back me up here. The older you get, the less time you have to get things done. I mean,
how did you know that?
We got dark in a hurry, Rob.
I realized how that's. Sounded after I said it.
Oh, goodness. All right, Ken, save us from Rob's sudden attack of macabre, and let's talk about Thunderbird and the new thing that they are doing.
Yes, please do. And Bobby Borisov, I want to thank you for writing about a possible alternative to Gmail and Office 365. It is a new initiative by Thunderbird called Thunderbird Pro and Thundermail.
Thundermail.
Thunderbird's goal is to take its popular email client beyond the desktop and into territory currently ruled by giants like Google's Gmail and Microsoft Office's 365. We hear from Ryan Sipes, Thunderbird's managing director of production, the reasons behind this decision. He said, "The why for offering these services is simple. Thunderbird loses users each day to rich ecosystems that are both clients and services, such as Gmail and Office 365. These ecosystems have both hard vendor lock-ins, and I believe that's through interoperability issues with third-party clients, and soft lock-ins. In other words, through convenience and integration between their clients and services." He goes on to say, "It is our goal to eventually have a similar offering so that a 100% open source, freedom-respecting alternative ecosystem is available for those who want it." Now, Bobby states a major part of this new umbrella of services is Appointment. It's a scheduling tool that allows individuals to share calendar availability via a simple link. The next part of this umbrella is Thunderbird Send. It emerges as an evolution of the former Firefox Send project. Are you old enough to remember that, Jonathan?
I was just trying to figure out what Firefox Send is. I don't remember.
Although the code has undergone significant restructuring, leading some insiders to jokingly call it a ship of Theseus situation,
Mm-hmm.
the main goal remains consistent: to enable secure and private file sharing conveniently.
Mm-hmm.
The Thunderbird Assist will also be available. This experimental feature, developed in collaboration with Flower AI, not Al, offers optional artificial intelligent functionalities for users who want them, while also addressing privacy concerns head-on on devices robust enough to handle AI modules locally. Thunderbird Assist processes everything on the user's own machines. If you prefer to skip AI services, you can continue to using the Thunderbird without these extras. Now, according to Bobby, the most exciting part is Thundermail, an entirely new email service built upon open source software stacks, primarily Stalwart. And he's got a link to a article he wrote about Stalwart back in March that was really interesting. So I do recommend following the links from the show notes here to find out more about Stalwart. But the end goal is to provide a modern, feature-rich email system that respects users' freedom and privacy while also matching or outdoing the convenience of big-name providers. Now, if you are interested, Thundermail is accepting signups for the beta waitlist at thundermail.com. Again, linked in Bobby's article. If you are not actively involved in Thunderbird development or community support, then definitely read Bobby's article on how Thundermail will support server cost and development.
This is very interesting to me. I remember when we had it. I think it was Ryan Sipes. I'm pretty sure I had him on Floss Weekly. One of the points that we made. In fact, we made it the show title for that show. Please don't add AI slop to Thunderbird, and hopefully they haven't. I've not looked very deeply into Thunderbird Assist, but they are making it optional, which is always a good sign.
And they got the coolest name for the mail server.
Thundermail?
Yeah.
Well, that's a not very veiled reference to Gmail. It's like the Thunderbird version of Gmail, right?
Yeah, but it's
That's-
cooler.
Well, okay.
Oh, I got Gmail. Oh, look, I got Exchange. I got Thundermail.
Well, yes,
Now-
I get that, but
With-
no, this whole thing, it's very much, it's like it's trying to be an open source version of the Google Suite for business, right? Which, I mean, that's cool. That's really interesting that there's going to be somebody else in that space. Yeah, next time I have I wouldn't want to start with a customer. I'd want to start with something that was one of my own. But next time I have a project spin up and I need an email address from it, this would definitely be something interesting to look at, just to get a feel for what it's like.
And what's interesting, though, is definitely read about Stalwart. It may give you some ideas on how you may be able to self-host part of that.
Yeah, I've gone with iRead Mail for my email hosting, and I've actually had really good success with that. So I'll probably stick with that.
Now, maybe
Yeah.
I missed it. I don't know. But so Thundermail, the server, is it just going to be? I'm sure it's going to be more than just just another mail server. I mean, is this going to be more like Exchange? that would be exciting.
It's an open source alternative to Exchange.
Where it actually has like the calendars and stuff that can.
Yeah, so further up in the article, they mentioned that a new part of this umbrella of services is Appointment, which is a scheduling tool. It's going to allow you to share calendar availability.
And Thunderbird sends, from what I got,
It's very similar to like a OneDrive or a Google Drive.
Yeah.
So yes, they are looking to offer a business suite similar to the Google Workspace or the Exchange. So yeah, it'll be interesting.
So if you have voting rights in any corporations, or have some way of providing input to them as some alternatives that may be cheaper than the current contenders.
And you keep saying like Gmail, and I keep pointing towards Exchange, and why I think it's more Exchange like is because Gmail doesn't have a desktop client, whereas
Right.
Exchange does, and Thunderbird does. I mean, they do, but and presumably it's all going to integrate nicely.
But I could see somebody who could probably appear in the future for partnering with them.
Who's that?
LibreOffice.
Yeah, if they wanted to go the full Office Suite version. Yep. That does make sense. I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about some of the crazy things that Mozilla Firefox have done, and Mozilla itself as the company has done. We've looked at these things and go, what are they thinking? Why did they think that fits with their core business? Whereas with this, I don't know if it's going to work or not. I don't know if they're going to get a bunch of people to sign up for it, but this at least makes sense with their core business, right? This is not.
Oh, I agree.
We added, I don't know what it was. We added stamp collecting to Thunderbird. Some of the Mozilla stuff has been made about that much sense. This is at least on brand and on topic. So I feel a little bit better about this than I do some of the other things.
And Exchange and Gmail, they need an open source competitor that actually has all those features together.
Yeah, I think it'd be great.
We haven't had anything. I mean, we've had, obviously we've had email servers, POP and IMAP and whatnot, but I wish I would have caught this story myself. I'd be pretty excited about it if it was my story.
Well, and I thought the same thing with that you said, Jonathan, wow, this is on point, for what your core business is, and it makes sense, and I can see how it has a possible revenue model, and it, and then you could even add features like they have secure mail somehow. They implement something so you can't spoof email addresses or whatever, and have, if you're using our ecosystem, then here's our open standard. You now can have secure email, and then it could even force change in other email servers, or oh, we want to be safe and we want to be okay. We're just going to, go into the Thundermail ecosystem.
Yeah. Ryan Sipes is the guy there at Thunderbird. He's the project manager and kind of runs the Thunderbird project these days. And he's, like I said, we interviewed him on Floss Weekly. He's sharp and he thinks about these things and has his head screwed on right. So I'm not surprised that it's a much more reasonable offering that they're doing.
How long ago was that episode?
Let's see. I could probably find it. We can just search for Floss Weekly AI Thunderbird is going to be the thing to search for.
Well, and while Jonathan's looking,
February 12th.
Yeah, February 12th. But while another possible revenue stream is, we got Google paying for a browser competitor. If someone says, "Hey, Gmail's too popular," maybe they got another revenue stream for Thundermail. Hey, Google, you better load us some more money so we're a valid competitor and you're not a monopoly.
Yeah, Google's been in the news this week for being an illegal monopoly again, aren't they? They just got a judgment from a court. DOJ has taken them and they got a judgment that yes, indeed, you are an illegal monopoly.
But I think a lot of that, they were eating up some competitors and some startups and kind of eliminating competition that way. So I think that got them more in trouble than the actual size.
Jeff, wouldn't you rather talk about something more interesting than
that? Like what?
Yeah. Do you have a suggestion, Ken?
I bet he's suggesting KDE Plasma.
Yes. So Nate Graham's weekly blog, he highlights some exciting new features coming to both Plasma 6.4.0 and Plasma 6.3.5. Now, just to give everybody a reference point, we should expect Plasma 6.4 to arrive around mid-June, with the official release date currently set for June 17th, though, as always, that's subject to change. It can push or pull a little, but usually they don't pull, they usually push, but that's where they're targeting. Plasma seems to be pretty good about their release dates, though. The Plasma 6.4 series then should continue throughout the summer, leading up to the final release on September 9th of this year. So again, subject to change, but meanwhile, Plasma 6.3.5 is scheduled to come out on May 6th. So now first, let's talk about what's new in Plasma 6.4.0. The System Monitor Applications page now neatly groups background services into a dedicated background services section, so it makes it easier to track how the non-application parts of your system are being used. So no more switching between pages just to see this information. The Bluetooth symbol on your taskbar can now show the number of connected devices at a glance. And for those who prefer modern measurement units, you'll be able to swap out archaic ones like furlongs and rods. So no more memorizing that one rod equals 5,029.2 millimeters. Plasma 6.4.0 also brings a couple of performance improvements. The Wayland protocol now supports single pixel buffers, increasing efficiency for apps that use them. Plus, the system won't waste energy checking for screen rotation while the screen is off. So that's really useful for mobile devices. Bug fixes include making sure dragging items to the application launcher's favorite area no longer causes accidental launches. And in Wayland, screen mirroring now properly handles differences in aspect ratios between the screens. And when using Wayland, the task switcher preview will now appear in the correct location. Now, something more recent that we're going to see is Plasma 6.3.5, which got some love too. So when adding a new printer, the UI now lets you set it as the default printer right away, even if it's the only printer you added. Now, you're thinking, what? What does that matter? Well, this helps if you plan on adding another printer, but you want the first one to be the default. A pesky issue where the GPU resets could cause a Kwin crash has been fixed. And if you use multiple screens, the activity switcher will now be properly positioned instead of appearing in the wrong place. Now, there's plenty more improvements and fixes in both versions, So I recommend checking out the full details in the article linked in the show notes. As of now, just to keep track, there's one very high priority plasma bug, which is unchanged from last week, and the number of 15-minute plasma bugs has gone up slightly from 20 last week to 21 this week. But that doesn't mean bug fixes have stalled. Rather, as some are resolved, new ones are emerging. So KDE 6 is undergoing active development and keeps improving every day, and major improvements. So I'm looking forward to the next full release.
This is KDE has another one of those issues that I am threatening to myself that I'm going to have to dive into the code and fix. I'm running, I think, KDE 6.2 on the machine behind me, and they have a brightness slider that does one thing, and then in 6.3 they changed it to where that brightness slider affects everything, and it just drives me nuts. And so I don't have the time to do it, but I so want to dive in. It's actually been suggested to me that I should do it as like an extension, if it's possible, if the right things are available in there to be able to do it as an extension. We'll see if I ever get that done. It's kind of preventing me from going to the newest Fedora too, because it's like I don't want to make everything bright. I just want to make the videos bright, and I don't want to, my windows, the white backgrounds on the other windows. I don't want to feel like I'm looking into the sun.
Don't look into the sun.
No, don't do that. No.
See, that's a new fancy monitor. If you had some real old one, then everything would be dim no matter what. And
that's true.
Have that.
You're right. That is exactly the problem. That's exactly what the problem is.
Check out this 50-nit monitor. I can look right at the white screen.
I have no idea what the nits actually measure on this one, but
and 50 nits would actually probably be almost black, I'm guessing. Really, really dark anyway.
It'd be really dark. You're probably talking about some of the old plasma displays from the 80s on laptops where you could just barely see them. You're probably in that range. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Fun. Well, those are our news stories. Let's get into some command line tips. I know we've got some interesting ones today. Rob, you are up first as he scrambles to get it ready. With Vidder or Vider or Vider or Vider.
Yeah, I was actually scrambling to find my restream because I realized I was on mute when I commented and nobody said anything.
Oh, that would be why.
I'm like, oh no, where's my mute button? Because, I don't think they're really very lappable laptops in the 80s. But let's move on to Vider, whatever it is. So, I am continuing on with my my More Utils, the extension of Core Utils, my More Utils series, and VIDIR is the command I'm going to do today. So what this is you can edit a whole bunch of files in a text editor, like the file names. So, for example, if I type VIDIR, so I could do VIDIR, one path, multiple paths. I want to do multiple, or I could do no path at all if I just want to do the current directory. So I'm just going to do no path at all. This is just going to be my directory I'm in now. And, I'm also going to do a -v. That's optional, but it's verbose, which means, or I could do a -- verbose, which is going to tell you what it did at the end. So I'm going to do that. And now you can see, for those watching the video, you can see a list. It's like 001, and it has the /.bash history. And it's got all the way down to 17. There's a couple files that, I've already played with them, renamed them. But I had file1.txt last week. I kind of renamed them already. So anyway, when I ran Vider, it opened up the directory in a text editor, nano by default, which is kind of ironic since I think Vider meant the text editor Vi. I'll get into how you can do Vi or Vim later on. But so for here, if I want to change a whole bunch of file names, I want to get these back. I want to get, change the 14th file down to remove this extra stuff I put on there. And another thing, I'm not going to do it, but if I were to change, say, this music and this ULS, these are actually folders, not files. If I change the number at the front, like I put this to 13 and this to 12, it would rewrite. So the ULS folder would be renamed music. Music would be renamed ULS. So anyway, here I rename my 14, 15, and 16 files. And I am just going to exit and save. And you can't see that far, so I'm going to enter this up so you can see that because I don't have that on the screen. But since it was verbose, it told me what it did. It renamed file.1-start to what I had it, and so on. It renamed all those files. So you can, if you want to re-edit the names of files, folders in a directory, that is a quick way to just open it up in a text editor. Now, if you want to use a different text editor, you could set an environmental variable editor. You could set that globally, or you can just run it at that time. So if I run editor equals vim, and then I type viter, it's going to open it up in Vim. And now I don't know how to get out of here. No, I'm just kidding. So you could change that. And since I didn't actually set that environment or export that environmental variable, next time I do it, it's just going to be the default. But for those who don't know how to create an environmental variable and export it, there's another episode for that, I'm quite sure. But I'm not going to get into that today. So that is Viter, whatever you want to call it. A way to quickly edit all the stuff in the directory.
Yeah, nice. Viter. I'm going to go with Viter.
Viter.
Yep. All right. Ken, you've got a, looks like a quick Pipewire tip today.
That's what I'm hoping. So I'm going to start off slowly.
No.
But the tip is going to be for PW-MON, or as I like to call it, PW-MON. It allows you to monitor objects on the Pipewire instance. Now, you have, of course, the ever-present -H or --help, -version, and, of course, the -R or --remote options. Now, by default, PWMon uses automatic color output when you don't give it any options at all. But if you do want to control the color, you can do a -N or --no colors, or -C --color equals never. That will, of course, disable the color output. With if you do want color, you can do a -C or --color equals always, or have auto in place of always. And that would give you a color output that you can use. Now, as I said, PWMon by default, well, let me get to the, there we go. But for those of y'all listening, I've got my terminal up displaying the outputs from PWMon-help and PWMon-version. Now I am going to display PWMon with nothing after it. And you just saw a whole bunch of information roll through.
Yeah.
And to give you an idea how much information that is, I'm backing up. And what it displays is all your monitor objects along with their properties and parameters that are set up. And as I'm talking, it's even updating as we speak. At the very end, for those of you who are listening again, it's just sitting there waiting for me to make any changes in my Pipewire system. Right now, I'm just going to move my mouse or cursor and run it up across my panel. And since this is KDE, you're going to, anytime I hit an application that I've got running and it opens a window underneath it, you're seeing where it creates objects for that. And then removes those objects as I move away. So I'm going to cancel out of that. You do a Control C to stop it. And make it easier to find the beginning, I'm going to hit clear. And some other commands you can use are -O to hide properties, A to hide parameters, and to make it easier to see where each change is separated, do a -P or -- print separator to print an empty line after every event to help with separating that information on the screen. And there we go again. And just to give you an idea again of how much that is, I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning. And for those of y'all listening, there is a slight difference from when I ran it before. You don't have a lot of the nitty-gritty details that it was showing before. But it is a great way to monitor, especially if you've got new devices that you are hooking up to your system, to find out how it recognizes them.
Mm-hmm.
You can just have this terminal open in one screen, hook up Nexter mic, mixer, or control board.
It looks like the -P is not available on all distros. It's not available here. I can do the -O and the -A, but no -P here.
Which is a shame, because it actually does help make it a little easier, because for those of y'all listening, I've moved over and it showed me adding those KWin pop-ups that you've seen in my, go ahead and bring up my Qt path. Every time I go over one of those, it creates that in my QPW graph and then drops it again.
Yeah. Yeah, very cool. Very neat. All right. Jeff, what is G?
Well, we've previously covered the ls command, which is used to list files and directories on your system. Well, ls is a solid and reliable tool. There is room for improvement, and that's where the tool G comes in. Now, there's multiple ways to install G. You can use Go, Homebrew, the Yay package manager on Arch-based systems, or if you're on a Debian-based system, you can download and install the .deb package. Now, you might be wondering, why replace ls with G? Well, some things you can do in G is you can add icons or colors to specific file types. You can view file status. You can view file git status, repository status, and repository branch directly in your listings. You can customize sorting options, including sorting by versions. You can choose output formats like grid, across, byline, 0, comma, table, JSON, markdown, and tree layouts. You can use fuzzy path matching. You can group files by owner, group name, directory, permissions, MIME type, character set, and more. And additionally, G offers standard features such as displaying file sizes in human readable formats, customizable time formats. You can go ISO, full ISO, locale, or relative. And it's got a ton of comprehensive sorting options. I'm not going to go into all of them, but for more details on how to use G, check out the article linked in the show notes. And it also includes a link to the official documentation, which is much more approachable than the overwhelming wall of options in the man page. If you're wanting to just Google this and find it, search Linux space G-ls, and that'll get you to the right place. And then, but as always, look at the show notes. That's where all the gold is. So
yes,
Jeff,
yeah.
I think you missed one major benefit to going from ls to G.
What's that?
One less character to type.
It's shorter to type.
Yeah,
it's 50% reduction in character sizing.
Until you
big.
start adding all those options that it comes with.
Yeah.
Well, actually, what the author in the article talks about oh, and here is the alias I have to make it short. So when he types G, he's got about 4 options that automatically are in there.
Yeah, there you go. Or you could just make an alias of G to LS with whatever options.
2 mail letters.
Or alias from LS to G with all the the most common options you'll use.
Yeah.
Yeah. So his or their alias is G space, and then they got dash table, dash tables, dash style equals Unicode, dash total dash size, dash size, dash
we don't have
long.
all day. We don't have all day. Let's move on.
All right. I've got a command line tip for you as well. For those of you that like Todoist or are wanting to fiddle around with Todoist and you just really wish you had a text-based user interface. Well, there is one. It's not official or anything. It's Todoist-RS. Yes, it's built in Rust, which means you can install it with Cargo, which is actually pretty cool. It is the Todoist terminal client from user on GitHub, Illiterate Writer. Always bodes well. But it is an active project. The last update was just 2 weeks ago. The last release was 3 weeks ago, and it's a nice little textual user interface to be able to go through and look at your stuff on your Todoist list, mark them as done, add new things, add new tasks. There are quite a few things that people have asked for, would be nice to have in this. So if you want to go and learn a bit of Rust programming and have something to hack on, it might be also a good project for that. But if Todoist is your thing, then this is really a pretty interesting project. One thing that really comes to mind would be the ability to use it locally only and not connected to a Todoist account and use its own database. So somebody out there wants to learn Rust and make that happen, go for it. I think that would be cool. Super quick tip for me and super useful tool. So, all right. Quippy says he prefers the Daoist. I'm not familiar with that one, other than the DAO, which was one of those distributed financial things on one of the blockchains. I'll have to look into the Daoist and see if that's a real thing.
When I hear DAO, I think the Tao of poo and the Tay of piglet.
Okay.
It probably means something like the opposite to do, like doing nothing. I don't know.
Anyway,
if I knew what the word was, a simple word that meant to do nothing, I would have said I prefer that ist, but I don't know.
Well,
Rob?
What? Robist? I prefer the Robist. Do nothing.
no,
Yeah.
no, just Rob.
Just Rob. All right, guys. That is our show. That's our command line tips. We've gotten through the news. I'm going to let each of the guys get in the last word on whatever they want to, and we will indeed start with Rob. And I bet he's going to plug something about coffee and something about a website. Take it away.
For those people who love the Untitled Linux Show, I have a great website for you that you need to check out. Check out today. This website, robertpcampbell.com. That's my website. You can find all kinds of things about me. And if you want to be in touch, say hi, network, I guess, you can connect with me at there's a little button near the top for LinkedIn, another one for Twitter, another one for Blue Sky, one for Mastodon. And if you just want to show your love, there's a spot where you could donate a coffee in $5 increments.
Very cool. All right. And Ken.
Well, I don't really have much to plug today, so I'll just remind everybody, play it safe by backing up before upgrading or doing anything to your system that could damage it.
Yeah. I discovered, this is not a sponsor. Actually, I need to check before I do that. I will make this a future command line tip, and we'll just leave you hanging. I discovered a backup host that was a little bit cheaper, but I need to check who all need to check who all supports TWiT, because if I mentioned someone that is a supporter, I've got to make that clear. And I don't know off the top of my head.
On the Untitled Linux Show.
Maybe next week we'll dive into an option that might be a little cheaper if you're paying for, I don't know, one of the big ones like AWS. Anyway, I'll skip that for now. Yes, Jeff.
I will just say, I can start into my ending and say that my offline or off-site backup is Spider Oak. That's the one I've been at. It's encrypted before you send it up. So even if someone gets into the repositories or whatever, it's all encrypted in the cloud. So
interesting. Cool.
But I've been on it for years. It was because it was limited years ago of what you had for Linux. But
cool.
But other than that, I don't have much. So I'm going to go right into Poetry Corner. So here's the haiku. For line in poem, if syllables line not in, bracket 5,7, throw fail. Have a great week, everybody.
Nerdy programmer jokes. I like it. All right. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate it very much. And if you want to find more of me, there is, of course, Hackaday. That is where the Untitled Security column. That is where This Week in Security goes live every Friday morning. That's also where Floss Weekly lives these days. And you can check that out there. And I will say that if you're not a member of Club TWiT, you should definitely check it out. It's about the price of a cup of coffee per month. I was going to say per show. No, it's not nearly that expensive. About the price of a cup of coffee per month gets you ad-free access to all the shows and the best way to support. And we sure appreciate it. We appreciate everybody that's here, that's watching, both to get us live and on the download. And we will see you next week on the Untitled Linux Show.